In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Fired up for tonight's episode. We have done, I'm just off the top of my head, we have done 100 or so.
Look at that. He's got the goldfish. Does that mean there's somebody at the door or what?
Yeah.
Like,
guys here.
do they have Postmates up there?
Off the top of my head, I think we've done about 100 straight NFL episodes. So it was long overdue. It was long overdue.
We didn't even really get into the NBA, which is wild that we're doing hockey and not basketball. Look at that. Equal.
Basketball's Wild West right now. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
I've done more NBA streams than the deep dive.
That's right. That's a great point, actually. But yeah, no, it's a breath of fresh air to talk about a sport besides the NFL. We are, the NFL regular season is over. It's time to move on.
You're telling me.
And and the other major obvious weakness of this podcast, we've only ever had two Andrews, and we finally have a third Andrew. For first ever guest appearance on the Deep Dive, hockey originator extraordinaire, Andy MacNeil at Digital Gambler on Twitter. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here. How you guys doing?
Oh, it's a great night, man.
Yeah, it's a good Thursday. Normally we'd be, just
I
about
guess
ready
Thursday.
to watch Thursday Night Football. We'd be getting ready for the halftime show, and there's this emptiness in our heart on Thursdays now. So we'll do some bonus episodes, talk about some of the cool shit and hockey.
I hope that I can fill that.
When's the first puck drop? The 13th?
Yeah, Wednesday. So
that's like
we're a little under. Yeah, it's going to be here pretty quick. Yeah.
Right on. So, Andy MacNeil, we got to know you from your work for VSiN. We are compatriots under the VSiN banner, and your quality content hockey handicapping there always has been can't miss. I know you've put a ton of time into contributing to the season preview of VSiN, and I'm sure it's excellent. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. You've sent us some preliminary. You said so. I know it's to that degree, it's a labor of love. I mean, you have to really want to put the time and effort into it to provide something that's useful and valuable. But before we kind of get into this season specifically, talk about, how we see things, how the market is shaped up, what are some of the wrinkles that make this season unique, because it's very much, it's middle of January almost here. And, you would have a pretty mature understanding of what's going on in the hockey season. And we haven't even seen one game yet. So we'll get to that.
What is the norm? Yeah. What was always the norm? Like early mid-November?
It's like 1st of October.
No, we're talking like first week of October.
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes as early as the 1st of October. Yeah,
for sure.
Gotcha.
For sure.
So we're just 3 months late.
Before we get into this season, though, I'm curious a little bit more about your background. It's obvious to me that you are a true originator. Like, you're making your own numbers, you're doing your own, evaluations. You've kind of, I'm guessing you did this the hard way. Is that true? Do you have classical training in like statistics and data analysis and things like that, or was this just like, hey man, I'm passionate about this. I'm gonna figure this out.
Yeah, it's the latter. I mean, I think it's. It was a drive to learn and be interested in something. To be honest, I grew up a big Boston Bruins fan. My dad, he was a huge Bruins fan, so we watched a lot of games together. They finally won a Stanley Cup in 2011, and after that, I got married in 2013, and around then I'm bought my first house and all that stuff, and it's like. I don't have a whole lot of time to just be a hockey fan and things like that. So I wasn't really finding myself all that interested in sitting down and watching hockey. I was, more concerned with whatever working, making money and progressing in life and hope to find more time for that stuff in the future. But as I guess I don't really know what it was that kind of caught my eye, but I kind of started to hear some talk about hockey analytics and things like that. And so I started to read up on that, and that kind of pulled me back towards the NHL and being interested in it, and eventually towards handicapping, because I always liked gambling on sports. Talking about my dad again, growing up in Canada here, filling out the little corner store parlays and stuff like that. Even before I was of age, didn't really know what I was doing, all that stuff, but it was fun. I used to really like digging into statistics for fantasy drafts and things like that when I was a kid. So I don't know, it pulled me back in, and then pretty quickly I was like, yeah, okay, I can use this stuff to make smarter bets. And then it just progressed and progressed, to the point where, I do pretty well for myself now. And now I'm here full time with VSiN for this season anyway. So, but yeah, no, I make my own numbers. And that's, I'm a handicapper, I guess, in the truest sense of the word. That's I think a lot of people make picks and they call it handicapping when really, what the three of us do, and a lot of other people that we know, we actually originate our own numbers. And regardless of how you do that, it doesn't really matter as long as you're coming up with some kind of estimate. I think that's when you can start calling yourself a handicapper.
Yeah, we might have to redo the modeling ones we did a couple years ago. Those were fun. A lot of people had a lot of fun with those in the off season. But it's funny, I was just on a podcast the other day. They kind of asked the same thing. It's a question that gets asked on a lot of these, where it's like, yeah, how did you first start getting into it? And just like, well, I like sports. Like everyone's just like, well, I like sports, or I like fantasy sports. And
surprise,
a lot of people, unless it's really against your moral compass, like gambling on sports is fun. But then you have like that one extra step where it's like, I wanted to win though. Like gambling on sports is fun, but it's not as fun when it's just an expense. Like I'm just going to blow $200 every weekend betting on hockey. Like there's always that, all right, this is fun. I like watching it. I like winning, but I need to take this one extra step and, pick up some data analytics and maybe learn some coding or do whatever it takes to start originating some numbers and do some predictive analysis and actually turn the corner. And at least just stop losing money at it. So it's always fun to hear. Like nobody remembers why. It's like, it's like, I can't remember, why. It's like, well, it's because you wanted to not lose. Like that's no fun. It's way more fun to win some money at this.
That's like, and I got a shelf full of books here. I'm not a scholar by any means, but I'm somebody that likes to learn, and they're all related to gambling and making predictions and math and things that I did not care too much for in high school, but once I often laugh with my buddies from high school and say, like, if I had have known that I could be doing this, I would have been a lot more interested in a lot of things when I was younger that probably would have that probably wouldn't have led me to be a gambler. Right.
You know what though? You know what makes sense though? It makes sense for a hockey guy to get into the analytics and the math part of it more quickly than an NFL guy, right? Like when you're betting,
because it's a money line sport, or
because it's nailed it exactly. Like when you're betting sides in NFL and college football, you're waking up on Sunday morning, you're firing away at the board, like you're flipping coins, and
totally.
And there are people who are gonna hit a lot of heads and they're going to win some bets and they're going to think they're good at it. And then eventually they'll give it all back. It's a very common, cycle when you're betting on the point spread. But if you want to bet hockey winners, you got to have a number, and it's a lot more sophisticated to think of like, okay, well, should I be laying 210 on the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, or what is 210? Or I'm sure you guys do decimals in Canada, I'm guessing, right?
I understand.
He's Americanized enough, or he has to say the American lines.
And I think you should be able to kind of like go back and forth because there's a lot of benefits to understanding decimal odds too. That's a great point. I think from the hockey standpoint too, I think, if you're waking up or if you're just logging on to your sportsbook account at 4:30 in the afternoon before the puck drops and betting games, you're also flipping coins, right? It doesn't matter that it's a money line or a spread. I mean, it's kind of the efficient market theory, and that everything's priced into the line at that point, and it's like I said, it's a coin flip. But yeah, no, I think that's something that has always a little bothered me as somebody, especially somebody who was like thought there was that there was a market for people that wanted to talk hockey from a betting perspective, and even people, even well-known hockey media types in Canada. I can remember when I was a kid, they had this guy. I can't remember his name. Bob McCowan. He wore sunglasses on Sportsnet all the time, and he talked about gambling a lot, but he would only talk about it from football, basketball, things like that, even baseball sometimes. But he would always say, "Oh, hockey. Hockey doesn't lend itself to betting the way football and basketball does, because people like to make 50-50 bets because they want to flip points. So the point spread is a way to offer people a 50-50 proposition. People see, a money line, and they look and they're like, oh, I have to lay $1.50, or, I have to bet on a loser, because that's what an underdog is a loser most of the time. Right. So it's just a hard thing. But so I guess if we're going to start with a tip, learn how to bet on losers, because, that's going to be a big part of winning at hockey betting. You can't just bet favorites. And that's not to say not to bet favorites, because a lot of people, I think, and there's a lot of the pseudo hockey experts, the touts and stuff like that will only bet underdogs, and they call it value betting. They think, and that what they're doing is they're just hoping that they have a 50% chance, right? They're trying to bet that plus 120 dog that, hopefully is 20 cents off in their eyes. They're not really they're not really breaking anything down.
Well, that's one of those things we talk, again, probably back to some of the evergreen stuff we did with modeling. It's as you progress and get a little better at this, there's these mental hurdles, or these aha moments, or these realizations, and the betting on a loser in a money line sport and baseball is the same kind of thing. It's very similar, but if it's a 2-to-1 dog, it's likely, it doesn't matter what, if you make it less than that, it's value. All the time, out of all the times, these 2-to-1 dogs are going to lose, 2 out of 3 times. It's just, if you have enough games that are plus 200, they're going to lose a lot. But if you think it should be closer to plus 150, you got to be just fine with, I think this is going to win at a higher clip than the market thinks it is, and I'm going to bet this, I'm going to bet this, I'm going to bet this, and I'm going to lose a shitload of these. I'm going to lose a lot of these, over half, all the time, and I'm going to make money on it. And that's this weird mental hurdle, because to say I'm betting a game that I have well over 50% chance of losing tonight, it doesn't sit right with the mind.
No, for sure. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's you have to wrap your head around value and the long-term goal of accumulating or building up your bankroll, and then you're going to have losing nights, you're going to have winning nights, and if you're doing that all the time, and you're right, and if you're betting a team that has odds that suggest they only have a 35% chance, but you think they have a 40% chance, and you're right more often than not, well, or I shouldn't say you're right more often than not. You know what I mean? If you're right as much as you think you are, or almost as, at least
if your number's good. If your number's good,
you'll find out, right? I mean, it's a volume thing, and it's good to track, how you're doing, because you're going to be, realistically, you're probably going to be making a lot of bets on a lot of teams. There's 31 teams. There's 868 games, usually 1,271. So, it's a lot of games, but you've got opportunities to bet on a lot of teams. So you might end up with, 20 bets on every team at the end of the season, and you'll be able to look at how you did and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I'm curious if we'll get back, maybe come back to this later, because I'm curious if you do evaluate sort of classifications of favorites and underdogs and how you perform versus that. I mean, presumably you want a model that's that's relatively balanced across all sort of bins, I guess is the right way to say it. But back to Andy's point, I think that's one of the toughest things people have adjusting from sports betting space to horse racing. On a you could go a couple of days in horse racing and play 9, 10 plays and maybe win one.
Well, speaking
the opposite
of,
too, the favorite thing, like you said, that the fact that you get to this, it seems like people get to this point, and like you talk about some of these, pseudo sharp people saying, well, I'm only going to bet it if it has a plus sign in front of it. That's like, I'm taking the value on the underdog today when they really have no number on it.
Yeah.
Well,
sure.
The same thing with people that when you get to that point, they're like,
it's a free roll.
Never lay over minus 150. Like I've heard people say that, like, oh, that is the most ridiculous thing. What if you think the team has an 80% chance to win? Minus 150 is a goddamn gift.
And to your point about the horse racing thing, about having a lot of losing days with the corner store parlays, the gas station parlays that we have up here in Canada, there are actually syndicates that that's what they do, because there are opportunities to find value. Like there are correlated parlays. That's something that's a thing up here, right? Yeah. So especially during like a time like March Madness, when there's like a ton of basketball games, they're putting these lines up in the morning and they're taking them off the board by like 11 a.m. because everything that's happening, they don't move lines in this kind of stuff. They put up their stale lines, and then once they're stale, they take them down once they hit their liability, they take them off the board. But if you're, these groups are smashing those, and like you said, they might not win for 25 days, but they're just hoping to win 2 or 3 times in a month, and that's going to be enough, right? So
I love it. Well, specifically to making numbers for hockey and originating, I guess in my mind, at least, there's sort of 3 phases when it comes to being an originator. You're number one, you're kind of experimenting. You're like figuring out what it is. You're figuring out how you want to approach a problem. Like you're problem solving, right? Yeah. Maybe your staking is, it's enough that you feel you get the experience of gambling, the rush of a good win, and the pain of a bad beat. But you're not really, you don't have a ton of skin in the game. And then you sort of eventually grow to where you have an edge. Your numbers are good. You're confident. I'm going to increase my staking here. I'm going to make, I'm going to bet every day this whole season. I'm going to bet it. I'm going to learn some stuff. I'm going to win. Maybe I'll win. Maybe I'll lose. Maybe the luck will be with me. Maybe it won't. But I'm going to bet the whole season. And that's a kind of a good growth period. But then eventually you get to the stage as an originator where you're like, okay, my number's sharp. I'm beating the market. I know that I have something valuable. I want to scale up, but like I'm having trouble getting liquidity, or I don't want to post up. I want credit. You run into those sort of problems. Like, am I kind of describing a fair progression through the space? And
I'm pretty lucky, to be honest. Like, I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, I had a very meteoric rise from being a nobody to being a somebody. And I'm not saying like a somebody like in the sense of like I'm famous. I mean like a somebody in the sense that like I could quit Twitter tomorrow and I would still have people ringing my phone. Like, you know what I mean? There's no like, I don't need a brand. I'm past the branding part. I'm not saying it would last forever, but right now I'm in a pretty good spot where like, you got
market influence quickly.
Yeah. Whatever. I guess you could say that. And things have gone well, and I've kept it up, and I haven't. I've learned a lot of things. Like, I mean, we could do a whole show on. I wouldn't want to because it's a lot of bad memories. But there's a lot of things just with the money aspect, like you said, just trying to get paid and stuff like that. That can get tough. But the originating thing, I think like I see a lot of people, and now more than ever, like there's a lot of smart people like that are making hockey models. And the reason I'm only talking about hockey models is because like I think people have probably been publicly releasing game models for other sports a little bit longer, because like analytics has been more prevalent in basketball and football, and maybe not football, but basketball and baseball for sure. But there's a lot of people, smart people. I saw an account that I kind of follow the other day saying that they were going to release game by game probabilities every day throughout the season. And it's like, my first thought is, well, like they don't realize what they're doing. Like if they're any good, somebody's going to take it.
Yeah, if you're good, you're giving away too much. If you're bad, you're just going to.
Well, like I'm going to. There's like
hopefully you break even.
guarantee this person probably maybe
This
doesn't bet.
doesn't
they
ring
don't
true.
bet.
I don't know what this is crazy. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, but they don't bet or whatever. But it's probably a pretty sharp model. So somebody's going to take it and go bet it and profit off it.
Sure.
Like they're not even going to know. And like there's I would
We
definitely
might
say
have seen this happen in NASCAR.
Oh yeah, it's it happens everywhere. And there's like you guys know of Dom Lucian.
Sure,
I don't know.
yeah.
Probably
Whoa,
butchered that.
Say his
But like
last name.
he has, I don't want to say it. Luce.
I've never even attempted.
Dom L.
Done.
No,
Yep.
he makes me struggle with it. He won't even help me out. Like when we do like a show together or something, he's a jerk. But Dom Alphabet, he puts game probabilities out every day on The Athletic, and I don't know, like, he can correct me if I'm wrong. He probably won't watch this, sorry, but he can correct me if I'm wrong. But like, I'm pretty sure that he had to kind of start putting his numbers up later in the day because like some tout was taking his numbers and selling them, and like you could go to this guy's website and every single pick was the same and they matched his exactly, right? And so it's tough. You have to protect your numbers, especially until you get down.
Yeah.
That's the biggest hurdle for an originator. Like, I mean, it's either somebody's going to take your product to market before you do and kill the value, or like most people just don't know how to get to market, right? So it's tough.
What about vetting betting partners though? That's kind
of
that's
what I'm saying.
Like,
yeah, well, you don't. And there's like, I mean, I get people reach out and stuff like that, and it's like, some people will reach out one year and then you'll say no because of maybe reputation or one thing or another, and then they'll reach out through a beard the next year. Like I don't know, it's tough. You hope that you find a good place to ply your trade, and you hope that it continues and that you don't run into problems and stuff. And right now I'm in a pretty good place, I guess.
Real quick follow-up. Is the hockey market liquid enough? Is it deep enough that you could get down what you want to get down entirely on your own? Or do you have to have it?
It's not liquid enough if I can do what I do.
Okay.
Like, I mean,
basically,
I'm a smart guy, but come on, right? Like, I mean,
I didn't even mean it that way. I just meant in terms of like you're not going to get limited if you don't get accounts closed. You can if you're beating the market, you can get down to bet size.
You can get accounts closed in any sport if you're beating.
For sure, yeah, no, it definitely. I think people like. I think people like having different sports. Maybe hockey's a small piece of the pie. I guess that would be one way to put it. And people like to have a variety going into whatever accounts they're using and stuff like that. So it's like, I mean, if you're betting like a large amount of money on football every week in college sports and stuff like that, and it's nice, like, maybe the guy that's taking your bets thinks that this hockey stuff is square and that it's just coin flips and just kind of piddly stuff that he doesn't really care about. I don't know, kind of just I don't think it's a real heat magnet, that's for sure. I guess people seem to pass it over. Like, I know there's a lot of big time groups and stuff like that don't like. I mean, they deal with every sport, but they don't even touch hockey. But I mean, we do well, so or I do well.
It's a benefit to you, but if there's fewer players in the market, you don't have to rush. You don't have to rush to get to market.
It's still a race.
There's still
because of the low limits, relatively low limits. It's still a race. Like anybody can beat overnights. And if you're betting, I shouldn't say anybody, but like, I mean, if you
watch me not.
No, if you can't bet overnights and do half decent or at least break even, you definitely shouldn't be betting into game day lines because they're even tougher to beat. And like, that's another thing. If you're a small bettor and you're like, you want to talk about closing line value or whatever, like, I mean, I don't really worry about that as somebody who bets on game day, like predominantly. I just want to get the best of it. I just don't want the number to come back on me. I just want to make sure that when I bet it, that like, 80% of the time that later on like the bookmaker is going to look at it and say like, I
is that
wish he didn't have
about
that
the
number.
benchmark? Is 80% about the benchmark you're looking
Oh
for in
yeah,
hockey?
75, 80%. I mean, you're not going to get it all the time, right? I'm just like, but I want it the majority of the time for sure. But I just don't want it to come back on me. That's like, I'm not going to like beat my chest because it closed 20 cents. You know, I don't want lines to move. Like I would prefer them never to move, right? Like that's for me. Like I just want to bet something, and that's, you know, that's good.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're beating 80%, eventually you're going to be noticed.
I'm not saying I'm
You're gonna
beating
get
80%.
noticed.
And that's the like that's
No,
just
no,
trying
but
to get that.
I just mean fundamentally, if you like, I agree with you 100%. When the line comes back at you, especially when it's immediate, something's wrong. That's not a great sign, right?
It's just, yeah, I know you might get lucky and you might win, or it might have nothing. It might mean nothing. Like I mean, I know there's one guy. Pizzola has father-in-law.
Is that Rob?
No, that's
Get this guy off.
Sorry, but Pizzola had told me about a guy one time that, like, you know, he just liked to bet on certain goalies from whatever country he was from. Like, you know, like there's certain people in the market that'll they'll just, you know, they have influence, they have money, and maybe they're really like successful in some other sports. So then they just go fire off $10,000-$15,000 hockey bets for fun, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Move lines for fun, right?
No, I mean, I had an experience just you know, betting NBA last year. I had a pretty simple process that I thought was absolutely untouchable. Moved the market for, you know, a month. Everything was going swell, and then all of a sudden it was like everyone. I would make a bet, it would come back. I would make a bet, it would come back, and I was like, "What is going on?" And it was literally like what I was doing was, you know, was too simple, and I had kind of trained the market in a way that, you know, the number, you know, had, you know, the value had been sucked out before I'd even bet it, and people knew, and they were like, "Okay, no, you've moved this too far, and it's come back at you." And it took me like a good 2 weeks before I would like just accepted it. Like,
you were
okay,
super depressed for like
yeah,
not like clinical depression, but you were like sad about your losing an edge is sad. A quick question from the chat, and this isn't even a question. I don't even want you to answer this question. Sorry, Mr. Gilbert. But somebody asked, are you betting three-way lines or all money line? Which you don't have to answer that. I'm more curious about, is there limit differences? This is not, I've never limit bet hockey, obviously. So is there a limit bet, but is a big limit difference between money lines and three ways and totals, I guess? What's the difference there?
Honestly cannot tell you because I don't like, I mean, I know that they're there. Like, I know that the draw is there. I know that the three-way line is there, but it's just the money line is, I'm guessing it's a lot more like, I'm going to think that it's probably, you know, I know Pinnacle, for example, they take $10,000 Canadian during the regular season. They might have gone up, I'm not sure, but 6,000 or so American. That's not a lot, right? So I think like, and that's even less and that's game day. In the playoffs, it's a little bit more. But
it's like a fifth of a Bitcoin.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's no, it's I am a almost strictly money line better.
And
sure.
just because of
is that the highest one?
Cool. That's the
it's
biggest
simple,
pool, right?
man. It's simple. I don't know. It's
okay.
It's
and it is simpler, yeah.
It's
somebody said that to me about baseball. Like I said, you know, when somebody was laying big juice in baseball, and again, we just talked about that. It's not bad to lay big juice if you make the price way different. And I said, do you ever wonder about like laying the run and a half or even the -1? He's like, a team doesn't care if they win by 2. He's like, why are they incentivized to win by 1 extra run later on?
Well, that's a great point.
I can't quantify a team wanting to score an extra run later.
I think like, I mean, the only, like, I don't think it's bad. Like, if you want to bet puck lines, go for it. But your reasoning has to be at least somewhat sound. Like, you can't go to. I find that one of the squarest things that like novice hockey bettors do is they go and they, you know, maybe they got it locked in their brain that like, I want to bet this team. I'm going to bet the Leafs against the Senators tonight. They're going to destroy them. They're going to, you know, whatever. And then they realize, oh, I got to pay $3 to win 1. and it's like, I don't want to do that. I'll take the puck line instead.
Or
And it's
reduce the
like,
juice by betting the puck line.
and it's like,
You're not
no,
making the
that's
same bet.
you're literally making the same bet, like you are, because you're just like, in a way, like you're just flipping a coin. It's just a different. It's just on a different part of the spectrum, and you've got less chance of winning now. Like, I don't know.
I guess that's
in baseball too. I guess it's a bad idea. It's a mistake that people make in baseball, right? So like, only bet the puck line or the run line. And I don't know baseball, but I can say this: like, only bet it if you really like the team. Like, like if you think there's value in the money line, and then maybe it would be a situation where, like, okay, I'm betting the money line. I'm going to put a little bit on the puck line too, maybe.
There's a strong correlation there, though, too, right? Like, if you wanted to double your stake, you could bet, the money line and the puck line, and presumably, if you're right, you have value on both plays, right?
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of it's correlated, right? And that's why there's no value in saying, oh, I don't think there's value in the money line, I'm going to go to the puck line. It's like, well, they're correlated. So if there's no value in one, there's no value in the other.
Is there higher hold in the three-way?
They're not making a big differentiation from one game to the next. Like, a minus 300 favorite is going to be this price on the puck line.
They're not saying in lockstep.
Yeah, they're not saying like, oh, this minus 300 favorite is a different price in the puck line. Like, it's a pretty simple calculation on their end. So you can't go saying one is value and one doesn't.
Yeah, I say, like, it's like, unless you have some sort of way to actually calculate and figure out that this sports book or this operator made a mistake in the way that they calculate this derivative, right? So.
Okay. Well, in last real quick question, I've always assumed a three-way line is a sucker bet because I've always assumed there's a higher hold. Some markets there absolutely is, and that's why I've just been like, oh, this is dumb. Is that true in general in hockey?
Like I said, I don't know. I've never really, I know my only experience betting into three-way markets are from when I was like a rookie, inexperienced bettor, like as a teenager, doing the Canadian parlays here, like the corner store parlays, because those come with like 20% margin with the 20% vigorous. Sorry,
I would assume just the over round would be bigger on a three-way, just because every single market
a little more.
The more options you add, the bigger the vig will always be. So,
and speaking of that, that's a great. But no, you know what? I want to have a counterpoint to that, because there's a thing that I see in the regulated market, especially, and that is one-way markets, which are terrible, and I hate seeing that.
That's infinite hold. Yeah, that's infinite hold. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because that if you're a novice bettor, if you're not making your own numbers, if you ever come up and see a one-way market where it's like plus 700 that this happens, if they're not letting you bet the other side, chances are they're ripping you off. It's a good, that's just a good rule of thumb. Stick to that.
Right? Don't take anything else away from that. Like, that is a super good point. When you see some of these promo bets and stuff, like, if it's a promotional bet and you can go look at a liquid market and say, here's what this team is to win the championship right now, and I think that's probably fair, and they're giving you $1 better, like, maybe there's some value. But for the most part, when they have a standalone bet, a one-way side, they're not showing you they're hiding half of the equation there, so you can't see it. And
there's one book, one of the, I won't mention anybody, but one of the former or current fantasy sports operators / sports books, they have a lot of markets for hockey specifically where it's like, this team wins and this player scores a goal. And this, it's just a one-way market. You can, let's say it's like, Alex Ovechkin scores a goal and the Washington Capitals win plus 175. And it's, it's very easy to calculate, because if you know the money line, you just take the, you can just divide and whatever, and you can figure out basically what they're saying the other part of the bet is. And it's, and if you look, they're basically saying that this player has a really high chance of scoring a goal, when in actuality, they don't, right? So, it's definitely something that can, just staying away from that can improve your chances of winning.
Well, especially if you're not running actual player projections, because
sure.
you're betting a parlay without knowing what the value is.
That's true. Yeah.
Likely either you'd need a set of player projections, and you'd need a good NHL model, and you'd parlay it, and then you'd probably end up sad anyway because you're saying this 6-1 should pay 10-1, and I should be parlaying it a pro line anyway.
You keep saying things, and then I keep thinking of things, but
no, that's what this is.
You know, a lot of these global books, which is I guess what they want to be called now when we're talking in the regulated sportsbook world, but a lot of these global books may or may not have people that are from or come from Canada that really know hockey really good, and so like those places might be a good place to look when you're trying to like price, let's say, a player, like a player props market. Like some of these like little books, like I'm not going to name a bunch of them, but some of these retail books, you know who I'm talking about. They're out there, and they have like wide, they have huge options. So those are good places to look to compare. If you're not betting there, but like you can just like look at their odds to compare. Like, oh, okay, like this is a sharp line, so I know that that's where I can maybe find some value in some bigger, diverse player prop markets.
That makes sense. One last kind of origination.
You've said one last thing so many times.
Well, no,
I know, it's just cracking me up. It's like a running gag at this point.
40 minutes into this thing, Drew.
A lot of that was kind of follow up on sort of the same conceptual kind of discussion. This is a little bit, little different topic for you, but it's the last question I have, at least as far as origination goes. Not going to try to get you to divulge the secret sauce here, but more specifically in
there's no secret sauce.
When I sit down and prepare for an NBA season, less so for an NFL season because my process is a little different. But when I sit down and prepare for an NBA season, step one is let's develop a prior. Okay, let's put together some sort of prior, which is just a kind of a complete understanding of what is the true value of this team. It is speculative. It requires an understanding of all of the moves they've made. It requires a little bit of understanding of player value. You synthesize it all, coaching changes, things like that. You synthesize it all into, some expected value or expected strength number for a given team before the season starts. And if you do that well, if you do that better than the market on average, when the season starts, your edges could be big, right? Yeah. I mean, they could be big. You could have, especially if you have a good edge on a couple of teams, you could have that could last you 2-3 weeks, maybe 6-7 games before the market really catches up to New York Knicks this year. I don't think anyone in the NBA betting market had a prior on the New York Knicks that was as good as they have proven to be. So anyone that did is is printing money on the Knicks, right? Eventually, the market catches up. It always does, right? You're trading the market if you're betting into it. If you're winning, if you're limit betting and you're winning, you're training the market on all of this information. You're training them on your prior, right? Yeah. And you have to be able to be flexible at that point and really move off of it quickly, pick up the dynamic information of, what you're actually getting in terms of season data, integrate it reasonably well, and continue to kind of, mature your numbers, find new angles and things like that. Is this, am I describing a similar process that you would see in a normal hockey season?
Yeah, for sure. And like, I mean, priors are important. That's what I'm working off of. I mean, the projections that people will find in the VSiN hockey guide that's hopefully coming out tomorrow. Those projections, that's where I'm, getting my game probabilities from on a day-to-day basis. But like the priors really are, I don't know, the modeling, all that stuff, it's important and stuff. But like, I mean, that's just getting me to the starting point. And then it's everything that's happening in the morning with rosters, goaltenders, everything like that. So like a lot of things change. And that's something I would definitely caution people about too, is when like there's a site like Money Puck, for example, is a site that gives out game probabilities and stuff like that every single day. You can even like look ahead and see what their probabilities will be for the game, in 7 days from now or whatever. But like, is there any nuance involved in it? Like, are they like, changing things when, things go wrong for a team as far as like a lineup, or something like that? Like, is that going to be, priced into their projection. No, like that guy's not sitting at his computer at 6 a.m. and monitoring everything and making the necessary changes and the adjustments that are needed. And somebody might say like, oh well, like this I've followed this model all season that gives out their probabilities every morning and I've won. And it's like, okay, but did you win because you were, or did you just like, was it just like there's a like for football example, if you're betting if you bet 100 games in a season at minus 110, there's a 30% chance that, assuming that you're just flipping coins, like, there's a 30% chance that you could profit just by luck, right? So, I don't know what that's going to be in hockey. It all depends on what your average price is and everything. But there's a chance that you could just be winning by luck. And when you talk about priors, it's important to really trust them, especially early in the season. Like everything, like probably half of what you see, the results are, based on luck. Like it's half skill, half luck. Hockey, some hardcore hockey fans might think that's bullshit and think that it's like a detriment to the sport, or like I'm saying that the players aren't skilled, but it's obviously not that. It's just there's so many. It's just the possessions are a lot more discreet than basketball. There's like the players are always switching in and out, and like there's the best players are only on the ice for like small amounts of time. It's just like it's a lot of the time it's like plugs versus plugs, and it's like who the best will the best plugs win, right? So
what if Aaron Rodgers played like I mean, what's like essentially 20 minutes a game?
Yeah,
I mean, granted,
things would change a lot, right? Like your projection for a lot of the game would be different.
Happens, but let's say on the offensive side, because I sound silly now because he's not out there constantly when the defense, but let's say he played a third of the offensive snaps instead. It would be a completely different way to look at it.
Well, basketball, I think, like if you were taking LeBron out every 2 minutes, like would you know what I mean? Like it's like, or if you were only putting him out on the court for 40 seconds and then he was coming off for 3 minutes and going back out for 40 seconds, like the Lakers projection for a game would be drastically different than it is when he's on the court for whatever, right? I don't know how long the basketball player's on the court for, but
no, that makes
40 plus minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then there is a pretty important aspect to kind of hands on the gears, so to speak, over the course of the season, keeping track of lineups, keeping track of efficiencies and things like that, and kind of incorporating that information in real time.
For sure, yeah. But like, I mean, and when you were talking about the Knicks and like being way better than anybody would have guessed, like the thing that's like in basketball, that's a little bit more like what you see is what you get, kind of, because it's like I said, it's more skill based. There's like it's like I know Michael Lopez, who's a really smart stats professor. He's on Twitter. He did a study a while back, and basically found that like in a 7-game series, the best team moves on 80% of the time in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
In the NHL, you would have to play, I think it was a best of 51 in order to match that, where the best team would move on 80% of the time.
Andy,
so like,
no, that's just too much hockey.
Well, no, I know what I'm saying though. But like,
although we're kind of going to get that this year, right?
But well, the playoffs are still going to be, and then we saw that last year. Like when you mess with the sample size, you bring it from 7 games down to 5 games for the qualifying round. 4 underdogs went on from the qualifying round, like which is obviously more than we'd expect, and they were, but yeah, no, it's really important to trust your priors. If you put in work and you think I've got good projections and I'm confident in where I see these teams and where I have them, if something's not going right, that those first few weeks, if there's some team that's maybe you want to make an adjustment, but like you have to make sure that it's happening for the right reasons. It's not just a long run or a hot streak, right? That like the Sabres last year, the Buffalo Sabres last year were a team that like killed me out of the gate and killed somebody else that thought they were smart and tried to hijack some of my plays out of an account too. And
that happens a lot, I think.
Yeah, that guy went broke. But the Sabres were like just killing me early in the season, and they were beating some teams like the Penguins, the Stars, and they just like they hurt me bad, and I was like, I'm just gonna stay away from them. And the second that I was like, I'm not dealing with this team, there's 30 other teams that I can focus on, The second that happened, and I knew better. Like I knew it was not happening for the right. I knew it was just, it was just the hockey gods playing tricks on me.
Sure.
But the second that I laid off the gas and betting against the Sabres when it was the time that I should have been betting against them the most, and it's like just shows you that like you don't stop learning, right? As far as trying to find ways to get over those mental hurdles. And I'm sure there's going to be a team or two that just like throw me for a loop early on this season, and I'm going to, have a really hard time keeping my foot on the gas, right? So
let's talk about this season, because that's where my mind went right away when Drew said priors, because it's a challenge. I don't want to say it is definitely not unique to hockey. What would we say? Football had the most normal season this season. NFL,
I would say so.
I think you'd probably be right.
Right. Close. Obviously, we had the bubble.
No off season, no preseason, everything else.
No preseason was probably the biggest thing, but you had the bubble in NBA, you had the double bubble in hockey, you have the college ranks starting at a weird time and canceling all sorts of games, going right into these back-to-backs. Obviously, the NBA with only like 70 days off. So, it's been every sport we've had to make wild adjustments on how we treat priors and how we're going into the season. And I guess not just talk about it, but if you had any advice to save some people some grief as far as how they treat teams, because you had a normal season 2 seasons ago, then you had part of it, and then the double bubble thing up in those, the what they call them, hub cities or whatnot, and now we're getting. And maybe just you should explain this better than I am. Explain what a normal season looks like versus what we're doing here.
Yeah, so a normal season, there's 31 teams, obviously, but a normal season, there'll be an 82-game campaign. That's 1,271 games total. That has been reduced by over 30% down to 868. Normally, you'd have the 4 divisions, and every team would play every other team at least twice. They would play the teams in their own division 3 or 4 times. But they would Western Conference and an Eastern Conference team would play each other a home and away time, or a home and away series. Sorry. And this season we've got all localized regional divisions. It's going to be the North Division, which is Canada. You've got 7 teams in that division. Then you've got the East, which is 8 teams. That's your New York teams, New Jersey, Buffalo, Boston, Pittsburgh, Flyers, Pennsylvania teams. Somebody else, Washington. They're in there too. Yeah. And then you've got the Central, which is a weird one because it's like Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Nashville, Tampa Bay. It's just like a mismatch of weird. It's like the Central and the Southeast.
That's not even the weirdest. Minnesota and LA are in the same.
Yeah, but Minnesota, like I said to you, they were screwed. They were screwed either way. They were better off to be the 8th Canadian team, move them to Winnipeg, right?
They should have petitioned to be like, we'll just stay in Canada for the year. It'd be safer.
Yeah, they're right there. So it's safer. Yeah, we will.
Well, not only that, but they get Vegas. You get Vegas and the Avalanche in your division too, so it's not easy.
There's 8 teams though in each one, so 8's a nice number because there's 8 in Canada.
Well, there's only 7 there's only 7 in Canada, so it's an oddball in Canada.
Yeah,
so
31 teams. We have not added Seattle yet.
31 teams. No. That's right.
We're getting some cracking.
We're gonna have 32. Next year with Seattle. And then we have the West, which is the California teams, the Arizona, Minnesota, and St. Louis and Vegas.
And they're not playing
outside their divisions. It's 56 games.
That's crazy.
They're going to play like some team. Anyway, they're going to play the teams between 8 and 10 times. They'll play like Edmonton and Calgary being provincial rivals, like the Battle of Alberta. They're going to play each other 10 times. It's going to be.
We all know the storied Battle of Alberta. Yes, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like the teams that used to do those road trips, like you'd go play those 2 teams, and they're just gonna, they're gonna enhance that. Like when Minnesota goes out to the coast, you play both California teams in a row, or when you go to Phoenix, you also go to Vegas and play a couple, so they can keep travel a little. I don't know if it's any safer, but easier.
Don't really know what's happening with the Sharks. You talked about California there, and that's Santa Clara County, right? And they're probably not going to be starting the season at home in the what's it called, the SAP Center, or SAP, I think.
I could not name a single hockey arena that's not like a famous one on the East Coast, man.
Yeah. I was more asking Mr.
Oh, he doesn't.
Wow. Yeah,
Mr. Suntan there.
What's funny is I've been to the Staples Center. I've been to the Duck Pond, the Honda Center, where the Ducks play. I've been to the San Jose Sharks, and I feel like the locals that I went with called it the Shark Tank. I think that was what they were calling it.
Yeah, the Shark Tank. Yeah, I should have just called it the Shark Tank. I mean, come on, right? So that's fewer games is the first thing that's different about this year and division alignment. The fewer games thing probably going to lead to some strange happenings, to some of my season long predictions or everybody's season long predictions looking pretty silly, because it's a lot easier to ride some puck luck to the playoffs in a 56 game season than it is to stretch it out over 82 games. The division realignment, that the one thing that kind of does is one thing I never ever have put much stock into how one team has done versus another. Like, I don't care if the Oilers beat the Flames 2 times and lost once or whatever, because like in an 82 game season, that's less than that's a very small percentage of the games, and it's just I'm not going to put a lot of stock into the results, but it's going to be interesting this year. Like, I mean, you're going to have a 56 game season, but like if let's say the Flames finish a point ahead of the Oilers, but they lost to the Oilers in 8 out of 10 games, like there's going to be like it's going to be tough to like judge like where okay, like now I have this big sample of games. I've never seen a team play another team 10 times in one season before. And now I have this like they're going to meet up in the playoffs or whatever, and like I'm like it's going to be there's going to be certain things to weigh.
There'll be a lot of bias from people.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting whether or not it's priced into the market properly. Like, I haven't really thought about it a whole lot. I'll think about it when we get there, but yeah.
And my head goes back to baseball again with some of what we saw in the playoffs there. And, obviously we only played the playoffs once. We got to see what happened, and maybe there was much to do about nothing, but all the teams in both central divisions got waxed right away. Like, they won like 2 games total. And people were saying, well, they were easy division, or that not only easy divisions, but they had easier schedules. Like, yeah, the Twins looked pretty good, but they played the Tigers a whole bunch. You played, the Royals a whole bunch. And I feel like we might end up with something like that, because it's almost a similar situation. Baseball wasn't completely just you're playing your division, but they were more regionalized, where you played the same teams over and over. And I feel like there's going to be some team that's maybe having the benefit of playing a bunch of lower level teams. They're like a mid-tier team.
Yeah.
They beat up on everybody below them. They get a little luck on a couple teams above them. And it's like, oh, this is a good team this year. And then they get to the playoffs and they go up against like a real good team. It's like, oh no, they weren't good.
Yeah. I don't have the numbers here on, like just off the top of my head, but I can tell you that if you took the average or the straight win percentage of every team from last season, and I know that's not like a great metric, but it gives you an idea of where everybody's at. If you took that and just averaged it out for each division, I think the East is the only one that's over 50%. So like, wow. I mean, if like a team from the middle of, like, it's going to be impressive if Boston wins the East Division, but they're the favorite. But if a team from the middle of the division somehow takes that division title, that'll be a lot more impressive than if a team from the middle of the Canadian division, let's say, or the North Division, I mean, was able to, because it's really just Toronto there and then kind of a lot of other teams in the middle. But there's going to be, and that's going to be important for because the playoff structure has been changed a bit too, right? Like, so it's going to be each division, 4 teams are going to make the playoffs. It's going to be 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. And then it'll be, the winners of those series will meet to crown a division champion. And then those 4 division champions will move on to the semifinals, and it'll be reseeded once again, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. So we could have scenarios where like an Eastern team is playing a Western team.
2 of the 4 best teams aren't even in the Final Four then.
Yeah, and we could also have a scenario where two teams from like we could have let's say like a Tampa or like a Toronto and a Boston end up in the Stanley Cup final, which would be weird because they're in the same conference usually, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
You could end up with two West.
Let's not get crazy. Toronto and the Stanley Cup.
No,
I'm
fantasizing about the idea that they finally make it to the Stanley Cup final after all these years, and they run into the Bruins that have like been their nightmare for the last decade, right? So it would just be awesome. That's going to be important to make sure that you're not overrating a team, like you said. And it's also going to be really important if you're trying to. No, I know, but like you're going to have to try to account for that. Try to try to take their schedule into account when you're making your team ratings and when you're kind of making your end of season ratings. But it's also going to be important it's going to be a lot harder for people to look at the Stanley Cup futures board throughout the season and find value in teams. You might do all right with the whole I'm going to try to buy low, sell high kind of idea, but it's going to be tougher because
this rings exactly like college football usually is.
Yeah,
right. College football, the Big 12, they just play each other, beat their brains in, score 1 million points. The SEC, those are the best teams. They're playing these hard, close fight, good, big defenses, blah, 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 blah. Like you have some semblance of who's good relative based on just how many 5-star recruits each team has, right? And the legacy of the program and something like that. But it's tough to make a number for LSU, Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, they just beat up on the Big 12 for 4 months. They win.
You see massive line movements in the bowl games, and obviously this year we had so many opt-outs and stuff; it was crazy. But even in normal years, where before players even sat, you saw some big moves in bowl games because it's these aren't two teams we're used to trying to compare to each other right now.
Yeah. So whoever comes out of the North, is obviously the Big 12 team this year that just gets wasted by the.
So my favorite thing, that's my favorite thing to do on Twitter every year.
Antagonize Canadians.
It's just to remind, America won the Stanley Cup again.
I'll be 93, and I'll be a little more.
All Canadians on that roster.
I'm not your typical Canadian, though, guys. I'm not like a.
No, but there's something.
No, I know. I was actually the guy that had to do it. I would go to my friend's house when I was a kid, and his father would be like, "Oh, it's the traitor," that's the because I didn't cheer for a Canadian hockey team, right? I'm not. I don't even like Canada.
All right, so a couple thoughts. I grabbed some ELO numbers from last year just because I was curious. See what was what, and I came up with a characterization of each of the 4 divisions. You tell me if I'm on the right track or if I'm way the hell off.
Okay.
We'll start in the West. The West looks like it has some dog shit teams. Arizona, Anaheim, San Jose, LA. These look like bad teams. I think you're probably
Arizona's cut above the California teams.
Okay.
Probably.
So there's a chance that teams like Colorado, Vegas, St. Louis, they could pad their points big time, and they could look like false giants to a degree if they're just beating up on these trash teams.
Yeah, I mean they're going like you said, Colorado and Vegas and St. Louis. It's a 3-way dance, I guess you could say, for the top spot there. I mean, the Avalanche, or not the Avalanche, the Coyotes and the Wild have kind of an outside chance.
Yeah.
And there's different reasons for that. They're not different reasons why the Wild are have an outside chance than why the Coyotes have an outside chance.
Okay. Gotcha.
The Coyotes, it's more of a goaltending thing. The Wild, it's more of the fact that they just have great underlying metrics every single year, despite the fact that they don't really have a team that's very notable, I guess you could say. But yeah, no, I think I had about a 50% chance that a California team makes the playoffs this year, or a little bit more than that, maybe.
That's the 3 of them.
The 3 of them. There's about a 50% chance that one of them will make it. So it's not good, but I mean, like Anaheim has John Gibson. He's a really good goaltender. That's why they've got a chance. The Sharks, they've got some really some players that have not been are not that far removed from being like elite. So it's they still got something there. It's still like possible that last season could have been a big one-off, but probably not likely. And Anaheim, or no, I already talked about Anaheim. LA, they're a kind of like a good team as far as like they don't get their doors blown off. I shouldn't call them a good team, but they don't get their doors blown off in terms of like they're not getting like outshot a bunch. They're holding their weight. It's just a matter of like they're a tough team to play against, and it's whether like Jonathan Quick, who another player, a goaltender who is not that far removed from being like an elite goaltender, if he can find his game, they've got a pretty good young goaltender. Every one of those California teams have little things that could possibly get them there, but it's just not enough to where I'm coming from.
Okay, so if we move to the north, you mentioned it already. Toronto's looks like the clear class, and Ottawa looks like the true dregs, and everybody else is kind of bunched really tight. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think the Canadians are a little bit. I think it's like the Leafs, the Canadians, everybody else, and then the Senators. And that's why a lot of people have, especially Canadian hockey fans, when they see people say that the North Division isn't really tough or it's a weak division. And it's like, it's not that it's weak in the sense that like it's that they're all not that good. It's like people confuse tough with like, yes, it's going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of parity because they're all, relatively similar.
The MAC, right? Like, MAC in college football is tough, man.
Yeah, they're all similar. But being similarly power rated, all near the 10 to 15th doesn't make you tough. And it's funny. We haven't got political. We don't do this much. We don't talk virus a lot. But I wonder if this is all just one big scheme to get a Canadian team into the conference semifinals.
It is because they're guaranteed to get there now.
They're guaranteed a team. They're one step away from a cup final.
They're only going to have one team though.
Maybe.
They only have one shot.
I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it.
It cuts both ways. Only one team has a chance.
If you're listening.
Okay, so then you mentioned already the East looks pretty robust.
Somebody did ask, like, what's the toughest division? What's the softest?
And honestly, did New Jersey and Buffalo? They are the bottom at the East. I'm guessing. Did they get a tough draw this
New
year?
Jersey, I think New Jersey a little bit more than Buffalo for sure. Buffalo, they're going to be a little bit tougher to play against. But it's a pretty short straw to draw. They went out and they got Taylor Hall, like big free agent signing. Nobody thought he was going to go to Buffalo. I didn't even consider it. Right, I figured like the Bruins were a team that were rumored to be in on him. But they got their man, and then they went and they got Eric Stahl from Minnesota Wild, and so like they're going to be a better team up front for sure. There's going to be times where the Sabres look like they're the best team in the league, like when Hall and Eichel are firing on all cylinders and stuff, and things like in the offensive zone, but they're still probably going to have a rough time dealing with all these juggernauts in their division.
Yeah, like Washington and Zdeno Chara.
Yeah, Washington's a team that that hurts to see him leave. Chara means a lot to me because, like I said, the Bruins were not a Stanley Cup team for a lot of years, and then his arrival in Boston was what started, putting him on that course. So big man is a great player. But Washington is a team that's I don't think Washington is a team that's on the same level as the Penguins and the Bruins, or am I forgetting anybody? Or the Flyers, but the Flyers not as big on them as some people.
Okay, and then the Central looks like pretty stratified, right? Like Tampa Bay and Carolina look elite. Chicago and Detroit might be the worst two teams in the NHL.
Yeah, that's it, right? Like that's a good. This one, it's like, I mean, and speaking of playoff odds, I won't get into like specifics, but like some like actually I will say like I think I think they made. I think the Westgate had made Tampa Bay minus 300 to make the playoffs at Open, and I was like, what? Like, what are you doing? I mean, there's no way they're like there's only it's a 16 division. Chicago and Detroit aren't making the playoffs. Like I shouldn't say that. Like I don't like ever being like certain, but there is like not
absolutes, but they're not.
They're not. Come on. Like Detroit, I mean, Detroit probably has a better chance than Chicago, even though my projections don't really say that. But like it just seems like the Blackhawks are looking at tanking. Like that seems like where they're going. And that's where they should be going for sure. But like man, it's like I said, it's Tampa Bay, it's Carolina, and then it's like a 4-team just jungled mess where like they all have pretty similar playoff odds. It's going to be tough. It's going to be musical chairs for that last spot, I guess. All season long, you'll probably be seeing, teams kind of shift in and out all season long, right? So,
what's going to be the most entertaining division to watch night in, night out?
I think I gotta go with the Canadian division, even though I'm not like I said, I'm not a big like Team Canada chest thumper. Like I didn't watch a lick of the World Juniors. I could care less. The Clearasil Cup, as a old friend of mine called it. Like I said, I can't claim that one, but I always liked that. I thought it was pretty sharp.
Mad that we brought this barrel out onto the ice. I didn't even figure out what that meant.
I didn't
watch a fake tournament, man. It's like 6 games, and with like the players' draft stocks like rise and fall, and it's just I don't know. I feel like my perspective on things, like when this player, I know it's exciting and everything, but I feel like watching it would cloud my image of a lot of these players and make me think that they're more ready than they are, because it's such a big stage, and it makes everybody like this Ducks prospect, Zegras. He's the big player for USA, and I'm sure he's going to be a star, but like, is he going to come in and make a big difference? Let's wait and see, right?
Well, I would play different if I was playing in that tournament and I was near like a top level player. Like maybe I'm not making that last pass. maybe I'm going, what does Kelly say? Upper mom keeps the cookies. That's my favorite hockey thing that I don't really understand. I think you know what I mean? Like I feel like people play differently in these tournaments because, like you said, the draft stock goes so you can go way up or way down based on some weird little shit tournaments.
Yeah. And what were you say?
I got three quick hitter questions for you. And then we'll close.
There was one thing that I did forget about what's new about this season.
I was going to ask that if you had something I didn't remember reading.
Well, yeah, the taxi squad.
That was one of the three. So is that going to manifest a betting edge in any way? The fact that there's taxi squads and there could be late changes, and if you know what a guy means, then maybe you got an edge on the market.
Yeah. I think it's going to be more. So not so much the guy that's coming in, but like maybe not overreacting so much to the guy that's coming out, depending on who's coming in. And like, I think like you could probably, I don't know, like it's a group of about 5 to 6 players that's going to travel with the team, participate in practices, all that stuff. And they're there for call-ups right up until 5 p.m. Goalies can be called up and put in the game, right up until the last minute, basically, because you need a goalie. And I know Andy probably disagrees, but
I've railed.
Andy wanted to be a goalie. Yeah.
Well, no, make it like basketball. You don't have a goalie.
Great story.
Like, scoring would go way up. It'd be way more fun to watch. Like,
but
when you score a goal, you just retrieve it and then you get the puck. Like that's like 48.
Let's do it like we play at the outdoor rinks, where we turn the nets around, we put them on their sides, and you have to bank it off the end boards and into the net from like a bank shot, right? So, so I think it's going to be important. Like try to get an estimate on these players, just like you would like try to kind of estimate the value and where they're at. Are they replacement level, above, below, whatever? I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of needle moving going on, because it's not like you're, where it's going to be moved is like if a big star is out. But like you said, it's going to be the difference between a replacement level player coming in and a below replacement level player possibly coming in. So that's important. But I think it's just going to be important to know who's there, who's who, because you're going to get these things last minute before the game, and you're going to like, you're going to be faced with these decisions, and you're not going to have a lot of time to think about it. And it's better to just have an idea of how that changes your handicap. So,
gotcha.
Something to be aware of. Sure.
The second quick hitter, the new offsides rule.
So somebody's
in
the chat.
Yeah, is that going to make the game more or less entertaining? It's tough for me to say there's a betting angle. Right?
It's going to make it better in terms of like there'll be a few less of those reviews, I guess, or the reviews will be quicker. I don't know. I don't. It's not gonna impact anything on a from a betting perspective. Anything that you can control anyway. But no, they should just take offsides out of the game, man. It's just like just make it seriously, like make a rule like that you cannot you can't pass the puck to a player that's already that's what I think they should do. Honestly, if they want to increase offense, make a rule that you cannot, a teammate, if you have the puck, one of your teammates, they can go into the offensive zone and go whatever, stand by the goalie if they want, but you can't pass the puck to them until you get over the blue line. I think that would make it maybe, but I don't know, man, just get rid of it.
The reviews are awful. Nobody
wants to watch that. Nobody cares. It's there's no skin in this game.
They were talking about the angle of refraction through the ice to see the line. What are we doing here? It's just
not good.
We're getting into science on this.
If somebody that is not a hockey fan just tuned in for the first time and that's what they see, they're gonna never turn on a game again. I don't know. It's
the reviews take a while. The coaches challenge reviews, it's they're all dumb. It seems like.
Yeah. Well, the goalie interference stuff is 50-50, and it's hilarious. I've seen some polls done on Twitter where I remember Bob McKenzie, who's a famous hockey insider. He took a goalie interference play from the KHL so that nobody would be biased. He didn't want to use Leafs and Canadians scenario or something like that. And he took it and he was like, "What do you guys think? Goalie interference or no interference?" And after the end of the poll, after 24 hours, it was 50-50.
Wow.
So I always thought that was hilarious. Because it just shows you how there's never going to be a clear-cut agreement on whether or not it should be one or the other. It's always going to be split down the middle, I think.
Get rid of the crease. Get rid of offside. Get rid of the goalie. Honestly, moreover, overtimes are dumb in a lot of sports, but what they changed overtime.
3-on-3. Yeah, it's awesome. Sorry.
The whole game should be
3-on-3. Last question for you. Because of the clustering, because you're playing a team so many more times, because you're only playing 7 other opponents or 6 in the case of the Canadian division. Is this going to make coaching matter more or less?
Their coaches.
I think goalie usage is going to be a big thing. With so many teams are going to play, it's 116 days the season, and. Okay. So teams are going to play every second night, pretty much every other night you're playing. So goalie usage is going to matter. Doing little things like starting your backup, especially if you have a good backup. Depending on who your opponents are and stuff like that. Maybe starting your backup in the first game of the back-to-back, and saving your starter for the second game when your players are a little tired. That's an optimal strategy, I think. Right? Those are things that can. Little edges that can add up throughout the course of the season, I think. But where the places where coaching really matters in the game is special teams, right? It's penalty kill and the power play. There's not much they can do to affect change at 5-on-5. Obviously, they have their structure, whether they're playing a 1-2-2 or a 1-3-1 or whatever kind of structure that their players are in as they move up and down the ice. But that's it's like I said, it's pretty tough to. It's the power play and the penalty kill where coaches can usually impact change.
So no change really.
Impact the game a lot. No, I don't think so. I think it might. You're going to see lots of gamesmanship and stuff, especially with these. There's going to be instances in the season where teams play each other 4 times in a row or 3 times. I don't know if 4 times in a row, but 3 times for sure. Where you're going to have. Maybe a back-to-back, a day off, and then another game. So it's going to be a mini playoff series the physicality is going to be through the roof probably because they're going to be looking at it like teams are going to be looking at it as a playoff mentality where it's like, let's beat the crap out of them in the first game, and they'll be worn down for the next game kind of thing. And
fights carry over from
so there could be so that's something to think about, and that's something that as I don't know how the schedule is going to shape out, but like as we have a sample of these instances where there's like mini playoff series in the season, it's like how is it affecting the total? How is it like, are these things that we're going to watch out for in the first game of a 3-game set between two teams and stuff like that, right? Like there's a lot to try to adapt to this season, and it's like, are you going to have enough time? Or like, there's going to be things that you miss. You can't get everything. You're just got to try to do your best. And the one thing, like I remember on the NBA stream we did, you talked about handicapping one single division, and I like that idea in the NBA. But in the NHL, especially with the Canadian division only being like 196 games. If you were to just limit yourself to handicapping one division, like you're playing with fire because there's a lot of luck involved. I would probably recommend just lowering your unit size, really small, I guess, and playing as many games as possible. Try to handicap all 31 teams. If you feel like that's too tall of a task, like just try to find a couple of metrics or whatever that you can rate these teams based on, and then use a tiered approach. Like, make like 4 or 5 tiers and just go that way, because there's not that much separating these teams where it's like, you're going to have your 5 teams that are just trash at the bottom, and maybe you'll find things out about them, and maybe you can just like kind of create some kind of little method to pricing them, like, if a team in this tier is playing a team in that tier, this is what I'm going to price it at. Like, it's a good place to start, I think, is if you're just trying to,
I get that DM a lot. Like, hey, I want to start modeling this sport. Where should I start?
That's great.
And
yeah.
I'm gonna clip this section. Just send him this video.
Seriously.
Ultimate simplicity.
1 minute, 16 seconds.
Adjust your tiers as you go. Be like, oh, this. You know what? They moved up a tier.
Really?
Like, it's not like you should be like risking a whole lot of money doing this. Like, but if you're just trying to get into betting and you want to like, and like when you talk about modeling and stuff, like, there's no specific like thing to hockey that's just like, oh, this is the hockey model. It's just the same stuff that everybody uses for every other sport. It's just I don't have any like magic model that I could give somebody that they would win money with. It's everything that it's the model, it's like the pricing methods that I have, and then everything else that goes into it, all the work that goes into it on game day and stuff like that is like the final product, right?
Do you have an opinion? Do you enjoy the regular season or the playoffs more from a betting standpoint?
I hate the playoffs.
Okay.
I don't.
Is it because of the goalie hot hand sort of deal? It feels a little random.
Because of the Celtics price, like how it was just +4 every game.
Exactly.
Like,
it's a mental battle.
I got it.
Especially when if this is my price for the series, and then game 1, the team that I bet on gets blown out. If I am who I say I am, the bookmaker is going to, if I am who I say I am, the person that took my bet the night before is going to be like, you know what, that guy's probably making a good pick. He's probably going to win the next game, but I'm going to give him a worse price today. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because you're going to get that closing price the next game. Like, if you bet the team at +40 and they close at +20. The next game they're giving you +20. It's like, that they're going to win, but
right. You're training the market more quickly, and you could get unlucky results. Yeah,
exactly right. I'm showing my hand. I'm letting you see what I'm going to do for this entire series, and I would at least I always want to win the first game of the series if I'm betting on it. That's why I actually do try to get a little bit down on series prices if I can just spread it out a little bit, because it sucks. Not getting anything. Like, it sucks to get priced out of the market. So if I see a series price I like, I want to get down on it. I don't like the playoffs. I like the regular season. There's a lot more places to hide.
Well, that's a good transition. What's going to happen in the playoffs? Who's your final 4?
My final 4. I'm gonna go with the boring answers, the division favorites, but that's going to be wrong though. So I could pick Colorado, Toronto, Boston, and Tampa Bay, and chances are like somebody is going to have something happen with COVID or something else. Their season's going to get derailed. I think specifically with the division favorites, even if there is a little value there, I don't think you want to be backing a favorite here, just because there's so much that could go wrong. Like, not first you have everything stupid and random about the sport, and now you have COVID and everything else that goes with that to deal with, right? So
does it make sense to just have those four in mind and like wait for the market to mature and hope that there's a little bit of adversity and get a better price in
well,
season?
yeah, like the Bruins, for example. I think I mentioned it in the guide. Like, they're a team that I would put on future watch, I guess you could say. Like they're at the 12-1 range right now. If they struggle out of the gate for any reason, they might be missing Pasternak, which was the leading goal scorer last year, for a couple of games. Like, but chances are there won't be any overreaction. But like, that's a team that like I'm going to keep an eye on. And if something, the year they went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2019, earlier in that season, they had a bad run, and I was able to get them at 20-1 at that point. And the other team that went there was 300-1 at one point, the St. Louis Blues. So I mean, like, there's good opportunities, but pre-flop futures bets, you won't even find one I make a couple of mentions of Stanley Cup picks in the guide. I don't make any because it's some of the worst value you're going to find. They've been sitting there. They've been bet into all summer long or all off season. Not a good market to bet into.
A three-way market having a little extra juice because it has an extra, there's an extra market into or an extra player. There's 31. Like, these are most future bets are pretty heavily juiced. You have to have a pretty massive edge to overcome that most of the time. It sucks.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just timing during the season. That's why you see Drew and I adding stuff, market entry during the season. And then I guess you talk about your guide and why I haven't seen one in my email yet.
Oh, you will you will get it. I'm hoping it comes out tomorrow. I know they sent me the final draft for the team preview section, and they're working hard on it, hopefully to get that out tomorrow. But it's going to be like a companion, like it's it's something. You have all the projections there. You've got the point projections. You got make, miss, playoff odds. You've got division odds, President's Trophy odds. And team, and now like a breakdown. Get to know the teams, what players are going to be important, and what players are at least worth keeping an eye on as far as somebody that could raise their profile this year and stuff like that. I spent a lot of time, instead of spending any time, I mentioned, like, for instance, I mentioned like the Carolina Hurricanes as a team. I would, if you're going to bet on a team to win the Stanley Cup right now, I like them at 20-1. I think they've got a totally clear path to the playoffs. They are, they're the only team in front of them is Tampa Bay. They're a team that's really, analytically inclined. Their management group is really sharp. There's rumors of them right now being interested in Patrick Laine, who's a sniper for the Winnipeg Jets. Who knows what they've got to give up? But they're like, it looks like they're a team that's like they see that Tampa Bay is the only thing standing in their way of a Final Four appearance, and obviously the Lightning are a tough team, but they are without Kucherov this year. That's their leading scorer from last year. So, like, if Carolina can somehow win that Central Division, they've got about what do I have? Oh, yeah, I got it right here, actually. Carolina, 29% chance of winning the division, according to my model, my simulations. So if they can do that, they might miss Tampa Bay altogether. Tampa Bay might get eliminated in that first round, even though they would be a favorite. But they might miss them altogether. This is the year to go for it. You've got this trio of young players. But outside of that, like, I spend a lot more time talking about players' futures, because I think, especially for recreational bettors and smaller bettors, that's a great place to go to. For example, if you were looking at like betting on Nashville at 8-1 or 9-1 to win the division, why not bet on Juuse Saros, their goaltender, at 50-1 to win the Vezina Trophy instead, right? It's like, because he's going to get consideration if he takes them to the top of the division. So, I mean,
we got to tell Brinson about Carolina.
He's going to be jacked. He's all about that. He's all about that life.
Okay.
This is fun.
This was
Yeah,
awesome.
man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it went a little
was
longer, I guess, but hopefully everybody that watched and listened and
yeah.
Any other sport for a long time.
I guarantee you we'll get more comments about this than we get on a normal NFL pod. That's for sure. I think this is gonna. People are really going to enjoy this one. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see there's any reason why we can't do a couple more hockey streams throughout the season. There's going to be some fun. I mean, even like coming up here, I don't know when there isn't football on Sunday here, but I think like the second Sunday of the season is like a day with like 10 games, which is totally like unusual. So like, I mean, Sundays are going to be all about hockey.
Yeah,
so,
outdoor games in Tahoe.
Cool.
Yeah, maybe we could do something for that. That would be fun.
At a bare minimum, we're going to have to bring you back before the playoffs so you can explain to us how the playoffs work again, because I'll forget. Again, it's goofy. They're doing everything weird.
No, this is fantastic. Thank you for your time. This was incredibly informative. I guarantee you our audience will enjoy this. I had high hopes and they exceeded my expectations. So much appreciated. And again, where can people find your content?
You can find me on Twitter at Digital Gambler and on VSiN. I think you write in Point Spread Weekly too. Do you, Drew?
Yeah, I did a week. I did 2 pieces a week all throughout the NFL season. It was a great experience.
Yeah, so you'll find me in the New York Post as well. I probably have something in there every week. Probably mostly has to do with the tri-state area teams. The editor there told me that they cover the Rangers a lot, the Islanders medium, the Devils small, but they don't care about the Eichels because I asked them if they wanted some Buffalo content in there as well, but they didn't. So it's VSiN, Point Spread Weekly. The guide should be coming out tomorrow. I don't know. And I'm on Twitch as well. I haven't done a whole lot besides the NBA stream, but I'm hoping to stream a couple of days a week, play some video games, talk some hockey betting, whatever. Just
is your Raptors franchise doing better than the actual Raptors?
I'm a little I don't even know how the actual Raptors are doing.
It's not good. No, it's not good.
They spent the whole off season into making Nick Nurse a cool hat.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, but
it's been bad.
I've played a few games. It's been fun. Is there a link to get his preseason breakdown?
Tomorrow or whenever.
Follow me on Twitter, and you will.
As soon as it's available, we'll give it.
You can bet your ass that I'm going to tweet about it as soon as it's available.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for asking.
Well, best of luck this season.
For sure.
We will have you back on without question. We're absolutely going to cover more. Absolutely going to cover more of this in the future as we move out of football season. So it's great.
Yeah, look into it, guys. I mean, it's fun and hockey. It's totally can be that secondary sport for somebody that might really like NBA or basketball. It can be that little bit of just to get the juices flowing, right? Like it doesn't have to be a big endeavor. Like you can just be a little bit of fun and like you said, if you can find some teams that you're catching. Like I know it's don't simplify it too much, but if you can find some teams that you like that you think are a little bit better than they are and get short prices on them, it could be fun for a little work, right? Like
it's better than the NBA from a betting standpoint. If you're getting into betting, pick the NBA. If you have those, if you're like, what should I do bet? Definitely. I mean, it's exactly what you described about the regular season is a bettor's delight and the playoffs are a nightmare. It's the opposite for the NBA. NBA regular season is a nightmare and the playoffs are just unbelievably fun. So
it's like people that when the end of a typical baseball season comes around. And NFL's about to start, and people are like, "Oh, I can't wait for the NFL. Baseball sucked." It's like, well, you got a way worse chance of beating the NFL. So, But anyway, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, well, take care, and thanks again, and best of luck this hockey season.
You got it.